what I do, Ivan, is that whenever I have to give something that's the magnitude of which is higher, I reach out to a core group that I have of my mentors, of dear friends, and I asked all of them that this is what I'm thinking of speaking about. That's the idea. What do you all think? And out of those 10 people, 8 were like, Utkarsh, what a brilliant idea. Yes, courage is spoken about in the world, but we need more of courage because we're living in times where courage is slowly moving away from the human mind. And then one of them said, but Utkarsh, all this while, was courage the innate emotion or were you driven by fear? And I was like, in my tracks. What kind of a question is that? How do I answer that question? But as I started to think about it more deeply, Ivan, what came about was that for the human mind and human body and human psychology, whatever you want to use the term, fear is something that's very innate to all of us. We all fear uncertainty. We all fear failure. We all fear being the imposter and all of that. And as I started to reflect on every leap and bound and movement that I had in my life, I realized that, oh, I was fearful of that. And that's why I moved. I was fearful of that. And that's why it changed. And then what emerged for me was that maybe it's fear that drives all of us, and we give it a lot of negative connotation, that if I have fear of failure, then I'll not succeed or I'll not move forward. But fear is something that's actually helping us, and it's a motivator to help us take the next step. So that's how it emerged, Ivan. And it's a very personal story, the TEDx talk. So folks who want to type out on YouTube the name, I think they'll find the TEDx talk. I think this quote is attributed to Nelson Mandela, where he once said, Ivan, that it's not fear is not the absence of courage is not the absence of fear, but it is your ability to act despite of the fear. And so I think that is something that I really took to heart, because if you look at this, and I'll give a few examples from my life, because then that it becomes more relatable. When I moved so I used to be a physical therapist many years ago, 2 decades ago, it seems. When I moved from that life to becoming a videographer and editor, the first day I stepped into that corporate world, my heart sank, because every day I would just tell myself, Utkarsh, you're an imposter here. So there was this fear of failure that was gripping me all the time, where it felt that this fear is going to take over me and it'll not let me act, because that's how we've grown with it, right? Because we think that the fear is to paralyze us. But what we need to reframe here, Ivan, is that it's not the fear as the emotion itself, it's the intensity of the emotion that paralyzes us. And so if I'm feeling it a very intense emotion of fear, then I'll not move forward. But if I'm aware of the fear, I'm aware of how much of is the intensity, I'm aware why am I fearful here, then that'll allow me to actually take the next step, that'll allow me to act despite of the fear that I have. So I think that's what played out in my case. Now as I coach people, Iman, I see that play so many times. The fear of failure allows them to not move forward in a project. It stops them from being innovative, and they will think about it 100,000 times, because they'll feel, what if I fail? But the question then you need to ask yourself is, if you don't do something about it, then you've failed already. And it's just a quick switch of button. And that to me is the courage paradox, that you will have fear. It's a very natural emotion. It's trying to protect you. It's like getting on this podcast. What will Ivan ask me? What if I screw up? What if I don't say an answer that the people in the audience, they don't even find it valuable, and 6 minutes into it, they feel like, what the hell, I'm not going to talk to Utkarsh. That fear walks in, but I have to act despite of it, because action is what's in my control, Ivan. It's until unless you do it 100,000 times, it's going to sound really complex. But once someone learns this art of being mindful, Ivan, and thank you for the hint, I think it becomes very easy. See, what I'll say is that these are these patterns that get formed into our brain, that we will act based on this. Again, I'll go back to childhood. And if any of our listeners are Indians, and Ivan shared with me that he's in Switzerland right now, which is where Dilwale Dulhaniya Le Jayenge was filmed. And so it's a very famous location for us Indians. My first question to Ivan was, what would it take for me to be in Switzerland? But the thing is that, as if you're a kid growing up in India specifically, and other countries are also in the same pattern, you're always told that you cannot fail. You're always told that you have to succeed at everything. But if we reflect on that, that just shifts the identity of the psychology of the person, because they're becoming fearful of that failure. And I think that's a big problem that we need to kind of move away from. The best way to do that, Ivan, is that we need to unlearn this behavior. We need to really pause ourselves in our tracks and ask, like, what am I doing right now? Is what I'm doing the right thing for me to do? And as you ask yourself that question, I'm pretty sure that 90 out of 100 times you'll realize that this is not the right intensity of the emotion that I'm. So being mindful, but the problem, Ivan, is that it takes a lot of practice.
Mm.
It's like look at Usain Bolt running 100-meter, right? He'll do it in like 9 seconds. And here I am watching the Olympics on the screen, and I'm like, 9 seconds? I cannot even like get up from the ground in 9 seconds. And
Yeah.
you're completing like 100 meters in 9 seconds. What the hell is wrong with you, man? But he did practice for years and years and years to be able to do that 100-meter right. So you as leaders, whoever is listening to us, Ivan, what is stopping us from becoming a better version of ourselves? What is stopping us from becoming a better leader, so to say? And the best way to do that, as Ivan said, is mindful. And one technique that I'll give you, you and I, both of us right now, are respirating, Ivan.
Mm.
We're taking oxygen in, leaving carbon dioxide out. I'm being scientific here. That's the level of science that I know. But we're respirating. I think what's important is for us to understand that when do we breathe? And when you really focus on your breath, when you really slow it down, that's when you become mindful. And that's what's going to allow you to gauge your fear and the intensity of it.